William J. Mitchell, in writing about photography, describes some images as algorithmic, a quality that he believes is crucial to the believability of that image. An algorithm is a set of instructions or rules, often self-imposed, guiding a person or machine in how to perform a task. Algorithms are used whenever something is done according to a set of instructions, even something as simple as baking cookies from a recipe. More complex examples include the computer instructions that govern industrial robots. Mitchell states that an algorithmic image, to a large extent, is automatically constructed from some sort of data about the object. Such an image involves few or no intentional human actions, but provides more trustworthy evidence of what was out there in front of the imaging system. In the realm of moving images, surveillance cameras, cell phone video cameras, and point-and-shoot video cameras operate according to algorithms. A surveillance camera, for example, covers a certain area, panning according to a computerized controller, and recording in a loop for a set time. Point-and-shoot cameras set exposure and focus automatically according to algorithms contained in the camera's computer chip. Mitchell considers algorithmically produced images to be more trustworthy. In that, he would agree with Susan Sontag, who wrote about photographs. The picture may distort, but there is always a presumption that something exists, or did exist, which is like what is in the picture. In the age of computer-generated imagery, that connection between an image and its object is even more crucial in how to judge an image to be believable. Some artists, such as filmmaker James Coop, use algorithms in the strict sense to produce video that is compelling largely because we know we are seeing something real, not staged. Charles Saunders Peirce divides signs into three modes based on the relationship between the signifier, or the term Peirce uses is representamen, and its referent, the object it represents. In symbolic mode, a signifier has an arbitrary or conventional relationship with its referent. In the iconic mode, a signifier is seen as resembling or imitating the referent through sight, sound, smell, texture, or taste. In the indexical mode, the signifier has a direct relationship with its referent. An indexical sign indicates something, an example being a footprint. This indexical quality of the photograph is what makes it acceptable as evidence, if not incontrovertible proof. Something real was out there to be photographed, and the less mediation by a human actor that stands between that real thing, the referent, and the photograph, the signifier, the stronger the connection will be between signifier and referent. Roland Barthes goes so far as to say that a photograph is never distinguished from its referent. A pipe here is always a pipe. The question arises, as a signifier, is a still photo fundamentally different from a moving image? Barthes at first seems to think so in the sense that moving images are so fleeting that we don't have time to attach meaning to them. He says, I am not free to shut my eyes. Otherwise, opening them again, I would not discover the same image. But Barthes acknowledges that even still photos have movement, a life outside the frame that we can imagine. André Bazin saw the indexical quality of film as central to its objectivity, conferring on film a quality of credibility absent from all other picture-making, meaning drawing and painting. Bazin did not employ the term index in writing about film, although Peter Wolin and others have made the semiotic connection. Mitchell is concerned that the referent is becoming unstuck from the photographic signifier in the age of digital photography, thus his interest in algorithmic images. He quotes the philosopher Roger Scruton, who states that the relationship between the ideal photograph and its subject is not an intention but a causal process, and while there is as a rule an intentional act involved, this is not an essential part of the photographic relation. Mitchell adds, however, that a photograph produced through few intentional acts is more truthful than one subject to many intentional acts. The problem for Mitchell is that digital photographs can be altered, or more to the point, new ones can be created that require no referent. Photojournalists adhere to codes that strictly limit how they might influence the events they photograph. Photojournalists or documentary filmmakers presuppose that the algorithmic image is considered more truthful or a better reflection of reality because it is less mediated. They want it known that the images they present represent actual events, not something staged for the purpose of the camera. In this sense, they want to preserve and even emphasize the quality of the photographic image as an indexical sign. The algorithmic image has its opposite, the non-algorithmic image, one made through many intentional acts, as Mitchell defines it. The extreme example is the computer-generated film. It might or might not have a connection with the real world, but it doesn't need one. It is truly an imaginary signifier, in Christian Metz's term. Mitchell arranges images on a spectrum running from non-algorithmic to algorithmic. The ideal painting is at one end, and the ideal photograph is at the other, the ideal photograph being one constructed automatically. Mitchell cautions not to insist on clear-cut dividing lines. Mitchell's continuum can be thought of as a continuum or range of how much control a filmmaker has or chooses to exercise. Ken Cobray's continuum of photographic control is similar to Mitchell's. The photojournalist is allowed varying degrees of control over the creation of an image according to its intended use. We can apply Mitchell's continuum to moving images. Again, the dividing lines are not always clear. Consider the definition of documentary, for example. In his book, Introduction to Documentary, Bill Nichols wrestles with defining documentary film in its many variations and subtleties, and refuses to provide one answer, instead describing many types of documentary film. For analytical purposes, let's consider two continuums of control. The first we'll call the operational continuum. It is the degree of control the filmmaker chooses to exercise. The operational continuum is concerned with the specificities of the film. Warren Butlin writes that, rather than comparing film to natural language, a semiotic analysis involves analyzing film's specificity, the invariant traits that distinguish film from other media and determine its unique means of articulating or mediating experience. Specificities are not what we see on the surface of the film, but are in its underlying system of invariant traits. Some underlying traits can be arrayed on a continuum of control, theoretically allowing us to measure the degree to which these traits are controlled intentionally. The second continuum we'll call the apparent continuum of control. This is the level of control an audience might perceive in a film or video. Pseudo-algorithmic filmmaking exploits the indexical nature of photography. The director creates the illusion that the audience is seeing something real by exploiting what Roger Oden calls the institutions of the film. Oden says a film's meaning is determined not by internal constraints, what we call the operational continuum, but by external constraints. These are values and relationships that are in our environment. The meaning of the film is determined through the process of watching, adding to the difficulty of separating types of films. Swirling about that external environment today are millions of videos and images viewed by millions on the World Wide Web. These cell phone videos, surveillance videos, home videos, often shaky, out of focus, sometimes poorly lit, tilted or off-center, are created algorithmically, giving rise to new institutions in Oden's sense of the term. The look of these unscripted, unedited videos are an example of what the directors of pseudo-algorithmic films are seeking. In Children of Men, director Alfonso Cuarón uses every technique available to him to create, in his words, the moment of truthfulness in which the camera happens to just be there in time to register what's going on. The film takes place in 2027, in a post-apocalyptic world where women are infertile and no child has been born for 18 years. But when a young immigrant woman becomes pregnant, the main character, Farron, played by Clive Owen, is enlisted to protect her on a journey to safety. Cuarón said he took his cues from the amateur video he saw coming from the Middle East, among other sources. He patterned much of his movie on the long mobile takes produced by these amateur cameras. He used lightweight handheld cameras that tracked the action in much the same manner. Michael Joshua Rowan in Cineast wrote that Cuarón's approach ventured into simulated reportage. Children of Men is distinctive in three areas that make it look, on the surface, to be algorithmically made. Cuarón uses long takes, or in some cases what appear to be long takes, to take advantage of the element of real time. He places most of the visual effects and much of the action in the background. And he adopts the point of view of the camera, at times emphasizing the camera's presence. Three scenes featuring long takes stand out. As the main characters ride in a car through the English countryside, they are attacked by a mob in a scene lasting about 3 minutes and 40 seconds. In a second scene, the young woman, Key, gives birth to her child in a squalid refugee camp, the scene lasting about 3 minutes 40 seconds. In the third scene, Farron looks for Key in the midst of a battle between activists and the army, a scene of nearly 7 minutes. Compare this last scene with one from The Bourne Ultimatum, directed by Paul Greengrass. A key sequence is a foot chase and a fight in the Kasbah of Tangiers. The scene lasts about 6 minutes 20 seconds and has more than 230 shots. The whole of Children of Men comprises no more than 460 shots in 109 minutes. All of these long takes involve complex technology, including digital editing and computer-generated imagery. This clip from a video included with the Children of Men DVD shows how the baby in the birth scene was digitally rendered, a difficult and expensive task performed by Framestore CFC using 3D tracking. Cuarón also went to great lengths to build a rich background that had as much to say as the main action of the film. He again uses cues from the media and from the environment. Some represent graphic matches inspired by news events. For the attack scene, an elaborate vehicle was built that would allow Cuarón, his director of photography, Emmanuel Lubezki, and a camera operator to ride on top, manipulating a camera on rails that could move about the cabin, almost as if the characters were passing around a video camera. Cuarón wanted the action to be seen as the characters would see it through the car windows. But again, much digital manipulation was required to achieve this look. The exterior shots were taken separately, then digitally inserted into the scene. Throughout the movie, the camera is an obvious participant. This is the most overt use of the indexical nature of photography to make a realistic-looking scene. Some scenes also take on the camera's look. In Laura Mulvey's terms, she writes that a film can have three looks: that of the camera, of the spectator, or of the character, with the character's look dominant over the other two in most movies. Lubezki told American Cinematographer that the film's look started with the decision to avoid when possible the standard A-B intercutting of opposing shots of two actors. The battle scene shows this look in effect. It follows Farron for more than 7 minutes through the war-torn refugee camp. Cuarón needed 14 days and many takes to get the choreography just right. On the last take, an explosion of fake blood spattered the camera lens just as Farron entered the derelict bus. The special effects company, Double Negative, digitally combined the completed shot with 4 other exterior takes. Late in the finished scene, the blood disappears, erased digitally. The idea of something visible on the lens is a common technique in pseudo-algorithmic filmmaking. For Star Trek, such lens schmutz, as they call it, was added digitally to the computer-generated imagery of the spaceship, making the cameras look apparent where no camera existed. This technique works only if the film takes place in a world where the camera exists. In Werner Herzog's Aguirre, The Wrath of God, the ill-fated expedition of conquistadors rides rafts looking for El Dorado, the lost city of gold. As they navigate a stretch of rapids, water splashes on the lens, and suddenly you are shaken out of the 17th century and reminded that this is only a movie.